Hey everyone, Coops here from the whole Box and Dice. Rivals at Ixalan just around the corner. Can't wait to get my hands on some sweet tribal cards. I want to talk today about a few cards that have already kind of caught my eye with pre-release coming up this weekend, and hopefully before the set comes out I'll be able to do a bit of a more in-depth video on some of the colors and some of the archetypes. And in addition to that, I just kind of wanted to talk about the upcoming potential ban announcement and some of the articles that have been written recently. There was the Wizards article about the strength of energy and the dominance that it's currently seeing in constructed play, and then with the ban announcement, everyone was getting, super pumped about maybe we're going to see some cards spoiled. I'm sure you've asked your playgroup this and your friends, and I've had it pinged to me on Twitter and stuff and in the YouTube comments. So what are my thoughts on a potential ban? What does that look like? What should be banned? All that kind of jazz. If I was banning cards right now, and it's very tricky with Rivals, right? They now have the new playtest team in Wizards, so I'm sure they've been playing Merfolk Tribal and Vampire Tribal and Dinosaur Tribal and just any, Esper Control or, maybe even Azorius, just any of these decks that look like they could be viable things, just to see if something takes down or challenges Teamer just to maybe a little bit better than kind of where Mono Red is in the format. And if that's the case, I don't think we see any bans. Obviously, these guys and girls have hopefully playtested the set to oblivion. They're probably sick of it now. And if Merfolk Tribal can give Teamer a good run for its money, and obviously Merfolk Tribal is going to have a little bit more longevity, I think, to the deck than perhaps Mono Red does if it can't get that reach. So I think that'll be interesting. If that's not the case, though, then I think we will see some kind of ban. Obviously, there's been a whole bunch of cards thrown up, whether they ban Attune, whether they ban, Rogue Refiner. I think if there is a ban, and I'm still not sure there actually will be, although, I don't not welcome the ban. I'm just not sure it's as bad as, say, Emrakul, for example, or Smuggler's Copter, although probably ironically okay now with the Braid. If they ban Cub and Whirler Virtuoso, right? I think that would make for a very interesting meta. Whirler not being able to just spam blockers against decks like Mono Red, I think would see that Ramen Up deck have the advantage like a true aggro deck should have. I know Attune is still going to allow them to do things like Bristling as well as Chandra, but it also might see them just become two colors. Maybe it doesn't become Teamer anymore. Maybe it just becomes like blue-green or maybe even red-green. That I'm not too sure on, to be honest. But if they were going to ban cards, I would actually prefer them. I'd like them to see ban Cub and Virtuoso, because that would mean that you can still keep Rogue Refiner, which I think is a great card. We've had cards like Tireless Tracker and stuff in the set. I'm okay with Rogue Refiner existing when your turn 2 play now becomes Servant and you don't have a way to spam blockers as efficiently. I think Attune is a necessary evil in Energy. If they just ban Attune, I don't even know if the deck goes away, in all seriousness, but I definitely would like to see how the deck functions without Cub and Virtuoso. So for my 2 cents, that's what I think I would do if none of these decks can compete with Teamer still. I know it's versing like Coreblade at the moment on, I think it's Channel Fireball. They're doing a best of standard. It's already beaten Jun and Abzan, and now it's going up against some interesting decks. So, if it is that strong, that would be my probably guesses. But let's talk about the new stuff coming out, Rivals. Maybe some of these cards are going to be the cards that dethrone that deck we all love to hate in Teamer Energy. And we'll start off with red, because I cheated and picked 2 cards out of red, because I just really liked this card. It's an interesting take on a card on Flame Slash. This is Reckless Rage. Instant for 1 red. Deals 4 damage to target creature you don't control, and 2 damage to target creature you do control. What I'm really interested about this, obviously Slash, it was a sorcery, and it dealt 4 damage to target creature. This is at instant speed. What I like about this is, obviously, if you have a creature that either you're going to lose to combat, you can use this, but also in that kind of mono red deck, you've got cards like Hazoret that are indestructible, and this is just an interesting way to be able to deal 4 damage. I'm not sure if they want to take away slots to have some removal that's not burn, but I just thought this was a very interesting card, and I'm definitely excited to see this in some pre-release packs. But the red card that I liked the most was I think it's Tilanali's Summoner. It's the Human Shaman for 2, just 1 and a red. When it attacks, you may pay X and red, and if you do, you create that many red elemental creature tokens that are tapped and attacking. Now, very similar to how a lot of the blue-red and Grixis control decks used to side in Dragon Master Outcast. I think this could be a very interesting way that, obviously, you're never playing this on turn 2, but it just kind of gives some finality to the deck. I really just, like the Ascend shouldn't be a problem, and the fact that they get exiled doesn't even matter anyway. Like, it's just a way to be able to pump in some guys. Obviously, you can't make them defensively. I think the card would be too strong if you could just do it at any time. But I just think it'd be interesting to see if if blue-red is a control, or even maybe if Jeskai is a control list, then it wants to run something like this just to be able to give it a way to, to do some damage on the board. And your opponent's probably taking out things like Settle the Wreckage in the Mirror, and this is a really interesting way that you can get in for damage. Jumping into green, and we've got Wayward Swordiooth for 3 mana. It's a 5/5. Very reminiscent of the 2 mana 5/5 Wolf Cyborg that we saw. This one has Ascend. You can't attack or block unless you have the City's Blessing. So similar to the Lupine prototype there. I think that was the cards in hand from memory was the trigger. But you may play an additional land on each of your turns. Really like this. Obviously early, it's a 3 mana 5/5. Turns on Ronus as well, which I really like. So straight away, I think that's very, very interesting. And I do like the ability that you can play extra lands. Obviously great for ramp. That'll be quite an interesting piece, I think, in a few decks. Mastermind's Acquisition is the card I picked out in black. And I know a lot of people trash this card, but it's 4 mana, 2 and double black. What I really like about this card is search your library for a card, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. So great as a tutor, but you can also choose a card you own from outside the game and put it in your hand. Now, the reason why I like this card is that I'm a huge fan of Approach of the Second Sun. If you're versing a black deck, they can cast Lost Legacy naming Approach of the Second Sun. Now, if you go and take that card from outside of your game, which is in competitive Magic, your sideboard, it's a way to get around that. And I got no idea if that's going to be a thing, but I just saw that and I thought that's a really interesting way of avoiding all that hand disruption and naming cards. Obviously, if there's a way that they can drop something that prevents you from casting Approach, then that becomes a little bit trickier. But I just thought this could be an interesting sideboard card to combat your opponent's sideboarding cards themselves. The next one, the big Primal Tide Legendary Dinosaur for 7. I think it's like Nezahal. 5 and double blue. He can't be countered. You have no maximum hand size. When an opponent casts a non-creature spell, draw a card, and you can discard 3 cards at any time to exile and return it to the battlefield tapped at the beginning of the next end step. Very, very interesting card. I'm not sure where this is, where it's going to fit. Everyone's saying this is like a Sphinx of the Final Word. I'm not sure it's at that level. Not being countered is obviously very nice. If it had a keyword on it, that would be interesting. I guess not being able to count it is almost like a keyword. You do need to have a lot of card draw to be able to facilitate its last ability, but I think it'll be interesting to see. Legendary creature as well, so we'll see kind of where the big guy fits in. In white, I've gone for the 3 mana enchantment Radiant Destiny. It has the Ascend trigger, which I really like. I think it's a very cool thing. It obviously counts permanents. I think people just need to remember that. 10 or more permanents, including lands. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. If you have the City's Blessing, they also get Vigilance. Very similar to Always Watching, but you don't need the double white. I don't think it's unreasonable to have 5 lands or 6 lands, this, and 3 creatures. There's your 10 permanents. Also works on tokens as well, which Always Watching didn't, which I love. So I think this will definitely see a bit of play in Standard. And I was pretty excited when I saw Radiant Destiny. I did decide to pick out one of the gold-bordered, one of the multicolored cards as well. And I picked out Azor, the Lawbringer. 2 double white, double blue, Legendary Sphinx. It's a flyer, obviously. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent can't cast instant or sorcery spells during that player's next turn. Pretty cute. But the fact that it's Sphinx's Revelation on a stick when it attacks, you can pay X white, double blue if you do gain X life and draw X cards. That seems like a lot of fun. Obviously, the first time that you cast it, you are having to find a way to take 6 mana offline, but I think it's a very, very interesting card, and it'll be, it doesn't protect itself for the first swing. I think it'd probably be a little bit busted if it was like, each opponent can't cast instant or sorcery spells during that player's next, 2 turns, or, until that player's second turn. So that way you can play this, they can't remove it, and they also can't stop it for attacking. I think that's probably a little bit too strong, but then in a blue-white deck, you should have the answers if they try and remove this anyway. I think Azor could be a very interesting card. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. What cards are you excited for with Rivals coming up? Hit me up in the comments down below. There are some absolutely interesting things. How do you feel about the Ascend mechanic? Is it something you're excited about? What did you think about them sneaking some random reprints from Ixalan into the set? Is that just lazy printing from Wizards? Who knows? Conquistador is an interesting one. If you get actually synergy off that between both in your pre-release kit, that could be very interesting. So that's an interesting nod to that card. But I'm super pumped to see where Standard is going. I think with a couple of Lords and the Mythic from Murphy, Kamina, I think this will be very, very interesting to see where Standard just shakes down into. I played the end of set, store championship, whatever you want to call it, for Ixalan last weekend. I played a blue-white deck, which was a lot of fun. I played blue-white cycling Drakes. I actually had really good matchups against Teema in that match, funnily enough. I struggled against Mono Red, just went a little bit too fast. Ended up getting knocked out in the top 4, which was annoying, but that was a pretty fun deck and probably didn't get too many pieces, but maybe even the Lawbringer and something is a card that I can play in that deck, and I'll be interested to see just kind of what cards stick around, and if there is that ban announcement, that's going to shake a lot of things up, but I think regardless, we're heading to a pretty healthy place in Standard. So thanks so much for watching this one, everyone. If you enjoyed the video, hit the thumbs up button. Hopefully you're all getting pumped for Rivals coming out very shortly. But heaps of new videos on the way, so stick close to the channel. My name is Coops. This is the whole Box and Dice. Good luck at your pre-releases coming up this weekend. Peace.